Hey, good afternoon everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to make cashew butter cookies. I didn't actually really plan this recipe. It sort of happened because I unfortunately bought 2 buckets of cashews at Christmas when they were on sale, and I didn't really know what to do with one, so I fiddled around and I did come up with a recipe that works surprisingly well. Now, if you can get cashew butter on your own, you might be able to at a health food store. It's probably going to be really expensive. The alternative is what I'm going to show you, using unsalted roasted cashews in a blender of your choice. And I do put some cocoa in it because I think they taste better with a little chocolate. You can leave that out if you want. I got all the ingredients for the recipe laid out on the counter here, and here's the list. As you might have noticed, I'm using my own homemade vanilla extract, and if you haven't ever tried this, you really should. It's a lot better than store-bought. First thing you want to do for this is make the cashew butter, and I've got 2 cups in here, and what I'll do is I'll just like grab a handful to start, maybe 2 handfuls in the blender cup, add all of the oil to start off with. And if you're asking why you're using oil, if you're making a nut butter, the grinder blades just won't handle the pressure unless you're using an industrial machine, and it just helps it so much. Plus, I mean, there is some oil in nuts to begin with, so as long as you're using a healthy oil, it's fine. The reason you want to start with a small quantity is to get it to grind up well. Plus, it's easier on the motor this way. There will be a few chunks left in this. I just think it gives the final cookies a little character. I don't really try to get every last little bit ground up. And again, just put in a couple of handfuls like that until it's all ground up. That sounds like it's nearly done. It's sort of like popcorn. Every tone change you hear is like a kernel popping. That's another fragment of nuts getting ground up. But honestly, when you get to the end like that, you're just hurting the motor for nothing. I'll just pour that in the same bowl I had measured the nuts in. It looks a little runny now, but it's actually quite hot from the grinding. And is smoother than I'd expected. The batter is going to chill in the fridge anyway, so don't worry about it. Sorry, I had to lick the spatula. It really is good. Put the flour, salt, and cocoa in a bowl, and take a moment to just mix that up with a spatula until it's even. I personally don't believe in sifting. A lot of people do. You can read it in many recipes. Sift this, sift that. But if you'll notice, once you get good with a spatula, you basically can get everything together nicely, pretty quick, and it's way less messy. And this is going to be mixing up again, so I wouldn't be worried about any leftover bits there. You can do this by hand if you really want to. I like the stand mixer for this. It just makes it a lot easier, and the result comes out a little better. So just get your beater attachment for this, and briefly mix the 2 sugars together. Now, your unsalted butter, and yes, if you want the flavor to come out really nice, you should use unsalted. If you are going to use regular, leave the salt out, and even then it might still be a little too salty. Now, well, what I'm doing, that noise you're hearing, is I've taken the butter out quite a while ago, so it's nice and soft now and easy to work with, but it's not melting, which is important. Like, it's not oily or runny or anything. So after you've got that done, pop the butter in. You don't have to put it a bit. Once it's in chunks like this, it'll mix up quite quickly. And cream that for a minute. I always start low so nothing flies out of the bowl, because if you hit it on high right away, yes, that can happen. This is a good time to add your vanilla extract. And you'll notice even just that small amount of liquid will help it to cream up easier. So once that's gotten nearly frothy, just stop that and put the egg in next. And again, start out slow so it doesn't splash. After the egg is in, I do want to take a minute just to scrape down the sides of the bowl briefly. I'm just going to be using the same spatula I used for the flour, no problem. And after that's scraped down, get the cashew butter, and I got that right here, and just pour that. You'll notice that's thickened up quite a bit just sitting on the counter. One thing I really do like about this recipe is the flavor is so subtle. If you serve these cookies to people, I mean, provided you check they're not allergic to anything, of course, right? Which I think is a good thing to do these days whenever you're serving nut cookies to anybody. It's just wise. But after you check that nobody's allergic to anything, a lot of people will not be able to tell you what are in these, so you can get all mysterious if you want. They'll just say they're good. So mix that up. And once you've got that really well mixed in, that it nearly looks like frosting, then what you do is, honestly, for this point, what I'll do is I'm just going to briefly remove the beater and set that in the bowl the cashew butter was in, because else this just gets way too difficult to try to get around it. Now what you should do is put in about half of the flour mixture to start off with. And start really low. Even on low, you'll notice a bit of it popped out. You can turn it up a bit when it starts to look like frosting. And I know it looks like you just want to dig right in there, but as a matter of food safety, you should never eat raw cookie dough batters that have raw eggs in them. It's just not wise. Park that over there again for a minute. Just put the rest of the flour mixture in. Now, even on low, this will get pretty thick pretty quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop briefly. Yeah, see how thick that is? It's all in one chunk. Push that off. Now for this, I don't take it off, I just kind of work around it because it's so dried up and it's not going to be a big mess. And even raw, this just smells like heaven, so you know the cookies are going to turn out really well. Now you don't want to overmix this, that it gets like tough and rubbery, but you do want to make sure that everything is good and mixed up. That looks pretty good. If you can see, yeah, it's starting to pull away from the sides of the bowl, which means it's done. The dough is too soft to work with now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get some plastic wrap out on the counter here and divide it into 2 parts and wrap them up and put them in the fridge for, I'd say, about a half an hour to an hour until they're nice and solid and easy to work with. Now, if you're really fanatical about these kinds of things, yes, by all means, get out the kitchen scale. Otherwise, just look at it and kind of pull it apart. And you know what? Why not? Let's see how accurate I am. I am going to get the kitchen scale. So I had the scale out, and here's the first piece, 472 grams. Set that aside. Got the second piece, 480 grams. Okay, so a difference of 8 grams divided by 2 on average of less than 1% difference. So the take-home lesson is, yes, you can just split it by hand and it'll come out okay. Well, I've left the other piece on that plate for the time being. And what I want to do is I'm going to be making fairly round cookies. You can also do squares. Squares are a lot easier if you want, because then you just basically square it up like this and chill it. And I like to do that before the saran wrap goes on if possible. And I mean, the assumption is always that you're working with extremely clean hands. So if you get a big oblong like this, after it's chilled, it's going to be fairly easy to cut. And they will spread a bit. And each one of these is going to make 12 cookies. So once you got that the way you want it, and yeah, these are a little oily now, but they're not that way after they're baked. Okay, so just roll that up nice there. And pop that in the fridge. The deep freeze is tempting, however, the problem with the deep freeze is, unless you've got like a flash freezer, which most people don't at home, you're going to freeze the outsides but not the insides, and it just comes out uneven. So a good chill in the fridge works out best. The oven's heating up to 350 Fahrenheit, so got a couple of cookie sheets. Just put some parchment on them and just take the dough out of the fridge, see where we are. It's just been about an hour. Now, this is cold, but it's still soft enough that it won't split when you cut it. I just cut it right on the plastic wrap there, so I know that it's going to make 12 cookies, so I'll just cut it right like that. As you can see, it is crumbing a little bit, not too bad. So let's put those out on the sheet there. Yeah, the end ones are always going to be a little rounder, but that's all right. So there's one tray done. Just get the other one ready. So the oven's hot, and I'll pop these in for 10 minutes to start, then take them out and rotate them. My phone just went off at the 10-minute mark. Oh, and I gotta show you, I'm so happy. I finally got a new pair of oven mitts. I got burned on the last ones way too often. So, now for this, you're gonna switch racks and turn them, okay? So that was on the top, okay? So, I'm gonna just flip that around now, so you can see that. And that's going to go on the bottom. And I'll take the one on the bottom and I'll just turn that and put that in on the top right away. And slip the other one in as well. And cook these for another 8 minutes. Second alarm is off. Let's see how they are. Oh, looking quite nice. There we go. They smell good. They look good. So now I'm just gonna leave these cool off for a bit and then transfer them to a big cooling rack. Now, if you've got a good pair of oven mitts like I do now and a fairly large cooling rack, provided you are nearly careful when you do this so the cookies don't break, you can just transfer it all at one shot like that on the parchment. And they're not too hot. You just kind of slide them off just like that with your fingers or a spatula. Now, if they're too hot to touch, there is a good chance they're going to break. So you don't want to be too impatient about this. So these have cooled down enough that I can touch them. So what I'll do is I'll just break one open for you so you can see. They're still warm, but they hold their shape quite nicely. And I already know what these taste like, but I'm going to have one anyway. They're crispy on the outside, and they're soft in the middle. And they're really nice. Now, I did break up, one of the good cookies. Generally speaking, if you're going to give these, what I do is I keep the end bits at home and just give out the nice looking ones. So that's how I make my cocoa cashew butter cookies. I do hope you give these a shot. They're just excellent. And thanks for watching.